Good afternoon, this is Tomato Tim. Want to go from tomato zero to tomato hero in a single season like I did? Stay tuned and I'll give you the specific steps to get there. Want to grow clusters of tomatoes like these slicers that are still really early in development? Just follow these 5 easy steps that I followed to go from tomato zero to tomato hero in a single season. The first step is don't be scared, make your own compost. We had some false starts with the tumbler, but we ended up with large compost bins, and that is a game changer. Putting the compost about a ½ inch, 2 inches of compost on top of your plants and then watering it in on a regular basis really just makes them explode. So that's we believe is the biggest difference between the seasons. Last year I had my tomatoes got diseased in the early summer. It spread through the garden with late blight, and so we didn't really get a good tomato harvest last season. This season is just a game changer, and it looks like we're in line to get just an absolutely bumper harvest. The second way to go from zero to hero in a single season relative to tomatoes is to install drip irrigation. Last year we tried a few different type of irrigation methods. One was just a spray method, which was getting the foliage wet. We also tried some bottom watering in kiddie pools, but we ended up, partially because we got the foliage wet, getting the blight, as well as we got some powdery mildew on the tomatoes. And so installing drip irrigation can solve those problems, as well as can make sure that the watering is done on a very regular basis, regulated basis, which helps prevent the splitting of the tomatoes and other problems with the tomatoes. The third of 5 steps to go from tomato zero to tomato hero in a single season is to maximize your soil quality. Well, yes, in a way this is a duplicate with the first, which we said make your own compost, and this is just using your own compost that you made. But also, when you buy soil, buy the best soil you can afford. Typically we will go to some of the high-end, I went to some of the high-end nurseries, looked at soil, ended up choosing Miracle-Gro Organics soil from Costco, but that was about as good as soil as we could find at any other of the high-end local nurseries. And also use your compost liberally. We have both worm compost and use our leaves and coffee for compost, and we've really that's really done a lot for our growth of our tomatoes. The fourth of 5 methods for going from tomato zero to tomato hero is to prune aggressively. We did minimal pruning before, and what we did is we studied up pruning. My wife studied up pruning for a lot of the vegetables. I focused on the tomato plants and realized that I needed to prune different tomatoes different ways. So I call that differential pruning. So I have intermediate slicer tomatoes like these. Those I'm doing specific trimming for string trellising, and as you can see, I trim them way up off of the ground and make sure that the first cluster, the first thing that comes up is a cluster of tomatoes. And then as time goes on, once we pick those, this will ripen. Once we pick those, this will ripen, and so on. So this is very aggressive pruning by its nature. Also, just even on the determinate tomatoes, rather than pruning them, the only pruning you really do on terminate tomatoes is just at the bottom to make sure that when you water, you don't splash water up onto the leaves from the dirt, which can cause spread of various viruses or fungus. The other thing is that similarly with the determinate cherry tomatoes, you just do bottom pruning of those as well and then let those go. But the indeterminate slicer tomatoes get continually pruned very aggressively. We also prune just to make sure that you can see through the plants. This one needs a little pruning, so I'll do a little pruning over here because you can't see in. These are much better in terms of that you can see right through the plant, because I've been doing the pruning to keep light coming through the plant, which helps prevent fungus and also helps to ripen the fruit. And then the final and last of the 5 steps to go from tomato zero to tomato hero in a single season is to select the best seeds for your area. I will do another video on this, but I actually went out and did a fairly intensive search for seeds. So I looked for all of the master growers in my area, got lists of what their favorite varieties were, went and looked on the catalogs, saw which ones varieties were resistant to which type of fungus or blight, fungus or virus, and then also looked at which tomatoes were heat resistant, which ones were cold resistant, and I ended up picking 46 different varieties of tomatoes, and I'm going to be doing tracking with you how the yield is going on each of those. So particularly for those of you who are in zone 8B or a similar zone, this should be really interesting for you. Thanks a lot.